Bum bum ba dun da 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 dun 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 da dun da dun 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 da dun da dun 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 da dun da dun da dun 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 da dun da dun dun dun. Mr. Opposite is a silly-looking person. He always does the opposite or something different than what the person says. His clothes are even opposite colors. Then someone knocked on his door. It was Mr. Greedy. "Me and Little Miss Greedy are entering an eating contest. Want to watch us?" Mr. Greedy asked. "Certainly," replied Mr. Opposite. But instead of watching it, Mr. Opposite entered the contest.
"What are you doing here, Mr. Opposite?"
asked Little Miss Greedy. "Mr. Greedy told me to enter," replied Mr. Opposite. The contest was being held by Mr. Funny. "On your mark, get set, go!" said Mr. Funny. Mr. Greedy and Little Miss Greedy started eating. However, Mr. Opposite didn't. "Aren't you going to eat anything?" asked Mr. Greedy. "I thought Mr. Funny told me not to eat anything," replied Mr. Opposite. But then the bell rang. "The winner is Little Miss Greedy," said Mr. Funny.
"I finally won something,"
said Little Miss Greedy. Mr. Opposite watched the ceremony and went off. "That was some good competition," Mr. Opposite said. Mr. Wrong, who was a good friend of Mr. Opposite, sent Mr. Opposite an invitation, but being Mr. Wrong, he put the stamp and address on the wrong side of the envelope. "Come with me to Mr. Happy Little Miss Sunshine's restaurant," Mr. Opposite read. Mr. Opposite met Mr. Wrong at the back entrance. "Ready?" asked Mr. Wrong. "Ready," replied Mr. Opposite. They took the back door instead of the front door to get there. Then Mr. Happy Little Miss Sunshine came. "What would you fellas like?" asked Little Miss Sunshine. "I'll have chips with a side of grilled cheese sandwich," said Mr. Opposite. "And what would you like, Mr. Wrong?" asked Mr. Happy. "A salad with a side of medium rare steak," replied Mr. Wrong. Mr. Happy and Little Miss Sunshine kept their smiles and went to prepare their orders. Then Little Miss Whoops came up to them.
"Do any of you gentlemen know where the bathrooms are?"
she asked. "On the right," said Mr. Opposite, even though the bathrooms are actually on the left. What actually was on the right was the basement. Little Miss Whoops tripped and fell down the stairs. "Whoops," she said. Then their food was served to them by Mr. Messy. "Here you fellas," said Mr. Messy, but Mr. Messy, being Mr. Messy, left dirt on their food. "Let's stay here," said Mr. Opposite. Instead of staying, they left, because Mr. Opposite does opposite things. "Aren't you gonna finish your grilled cheese sandwich?" asked Mr. Messy. Bum bum ba dun 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 do 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 do.